Hi everyone, this is a new edition of my podcast Show Me the Magic, where we share the magic of the best products that we find on the internet. And last month, in January, I was invited to the launch of Drupal CMS, and James, my guest, was there. And the first question I would like to ask you, James, is what about the launch of Drupal CMS? I mean, I've always thought that Drupal was a CMS. What's new with Drupal CMS, which was launched last month?
Yeah, so Drupal has been used as a CMS, but the core of Drupal is more like a framework. It doesn't do very much out of the box. So to use it as a CMS, you tend to have to install all these different modules or configure things. It's always been a bit complicated compared to something like WordPress, which out of the box just works. So the purpose of Drupal CMS was to create an out of the box experience that would fit with what you're expecting from a CMS. And we had a whole bunch of different names. In the Drupal community, we tended to call it Drupal Starshot. That was the first name. We all liked the rocket themes. But then when we test it with people, that confused people. So we found Drupal CMS works. And the vast majority of the kind of people who will appreciate the name won't really know the difference between the two, and it doesn't matter to them. To them, it's just Drupal CMS. It's a CMS with Drupal. When you go to Drupal.org now, Drupal CMS is the main thing that they show you, they target, and they aim for you to download. And Drupal core is seen as more of a developer tool, which it kind of always was. Yeah.
And have you already seen or received any feedback regarding the increased adoption of Drupal since the launch of Drupal CMS? Did it have a material effect on the adoption?
Well, I'm really focused on the AI side of things. So in terms of material adoption of the AI module itself, I saw within a month of Drupal CMS being released, we've doubled the number of installs according to Drupal.org. So I've seen quite a lot of AI adoption there. I've heard a lot from various people in the community that clients who are thinking of, is there any future in Drupal? Should I leave? Drupal CMS has reinvigorated their belief that there's future in Drupal, that it's it's future-proofed. Actually, quite a few of them have specifically mentioned the AI abstraction layer. And the idea that you can just swap out and have any different AI model has made them feel like Drupal is more future-proofed as well. So I've heard that. In terms of completely new increased adoption, I haven't heard it yet. It's early days.
Mm-hmm. And could you tell me more about the way that the Drupal community is organized? Because when we look at your profile, for instance, on LinkedIn, you're not a Drupal employee. You're a contributor. You're one of the major contributors, if not the leading contributor in AI for Drupal. But how is it organized, this community today?
I would say Drupal is one of the few true open source communities left. I don't think that's probably over the top. But like what I do tend to find is that the vast majority of open source projects in the last decade have tended to be dominated by one or two large organizations. Like even Linux is not owned by anyone. But a great deal of the funding and contribution comes from corporations nowadays to make it sustainable. Or you get things like Chromium, where it's basically just Google's thing, and they throw it out there. And the people who build Chromium are mostly going to be Google employees, and you might get a couple of community contributions, and you'll get forks. But the core of Chromium is just a Google thing. Whereas Drupal, it's been around for 25 years now, and it really does try and capture a true community spirit. So the founder of Drupal, Dries, is also the co-founder of a company called Acquia. And Acquia is by far the largest Drupal agency. But I can't remember if it's right, but I think their contributions are less than 10% of the contributions to the core of Drupal. They really spearheaded Drupal CMS, especially a lot of the features and futures in Drupal CMS. Acquia have been hugely behind that. And then there's an organization called the Drupal Association, which owns, I think Dries owns the copyright to the word Drupal. I can't remember, but Drupal Association
on his website. If you go on his personal website, you've got registered by Dries Buytaert, who is a Belgian guy. So it's also what attracted me to the to this story, because I'm from Belgium. So seeing this guy leading Drupal also sparked my interest.
Yeah, so the Drupal Association run Drupal.org and the a lot of the events, like the big conferences. And so they sort of manage Drupal, but they're relatively small and they're not owned by Acquia. So it's very much like, different people chair it. There's some voting for it as well. But then on Drupal.org, anyone can publish modules. You have to publish one, and somebody has to vet it to show that you can do the basics of publishing something. But then you can just post as many modules as you like. So you don't really need to be employed by Drupal or Acquia or Drupal Association to do a lot in the Drupal community. To contribute to Drupal core, there's a much stricter process. So you do tend to have to get to be known by the core developers to be able to get the core of Drupal. But it's so modular that you can do so much with Drupal in the module space. And that way, with no connection to any of the companies, you can spearhead anything. And that's what we did with AI. Like, nobody told us to do this. This wasn't a community initiative initially. There was a bunch of us that just went ahead and believed in it. And we worked at it, and we kept working away until we had some really good proof of concepts, demos, and code. And then that got people more interested. And that's why I'm now officially a Drupal CMS AI track lead. So I'm involved in the Drupal CMS side of it, and I have some authority there. But apart from that, we're just doing our own thing and contributing.
And for contributors like yourself, do you receive from this association or from Acquia grants to work on your project? So how is it working?
So sometimes some of the larger organizations will fund work for the smaller ones, and we have. So Acquia has provided us a lot of funding for the AI stuff, and then we've done a lot ourselves. And some various members of the community also have funded things. As I said, Acquia really spearheaded the Drupal AI CMS stuff specifically, like the chatbot that we're going to talk about today. That's really been something that we have had a lot of the ideas for, but Dries has got heavily involved in that. He's really excited by AI. And so Dries and Acquia have put some funding into it, but also some direction, help. We've worked alongside them. The Drupal Association doesn't have a great deal of funding. So we're a member, so we'll present some money back to Drupal Association. It's a relatively small organization, so a lot of it comes from community. There's a lot of Drupal agencies that build their own things, fund parts of it. Then we start working on things together and occasionally fund a developer to bring it into core or something. But compared to most organizations that have a company that clearly own it in some sense, even if it's not the license of it, that's not how Drupal works. And it's something that is both great about Drupal, but also a challenge. It's been quite difficult figuring out, like, how do we fund our AI work? Because I invest a lot of my own personal money into it, our company's money into it for many, many months and almost a year before anyone started really using it. And then other agencies can just take it, use it, and make money from our work. That is the good side about open source, but it also is a struggle of how you make that more sustainable.
Yes, because it's not like a typical SaaS that you would ship and then you would have a subscription on your work or something like that. Here, you just ship it to the world and people are using it. And yes, you can also use it for yourself, for your own project. But as far as you're concerned, you've been mostly active on Drupal for the past few years. Is it most of your work, most of your daytime job, I would say, is on Drupal?
Yeah. I mean, my Drupal.org profile is about 15 years. We created a Drupal agency pretty early on, so I've been working in the Drupal community for about 15 years now.
Okay. And you jumped into the AI space directly, when all those APIs were released, late 2022. How did it start for you, the AI journey? Or was it sooner than that? Was it even earlier than
No, I think it was a bit later, actually. I think it was when ChatGPT 3.5 hit and everyone started talking about it. So around 2023, early 2023 was when I really got into it. I was a bit exhausted from running a Drupal agency for a decade, and I had a son on the way. So I actually took a little break and I became a stay-at-home dad for a couple of years. So I wasn't working when I was working a little bit, but not a lot when ChatGPT hit. And I got obsessed. I went insane. I was sleeping. I couldn't sleep. All of my evenings, I started playing video games or whatever it is I needed to do. I would just play around with ChatGPT. I would dream about it all the time. All my conversations. I had a few of my friends in the tech industry, not in Drupal, but they also got hit by the AI bug. So I had one person who was a friend who was on paternity leave at the time, and we were chatting for like 2 or 3 hours a day whilst I was in a park, just chatting about AI, figuring out how vectors work and the possibilities of it, how it, good proof of concepts. So a few of my friends ended up, we all were getting excited, and a few of them have ended up with careers focused entirely on AI, on a much larger scale, to be honest, than me. Although their stuff has been more proprietary rather than open source. And then my dream has always been to pivot Freely Give to become a purely AI Drupal company. So we do normal Drupal work. We focus on Drupal CRM. We build business applications. We worked with the rail industry. So that was happening. And I almost created a little team of me and this person, Marcus, who he's been a developer who's been really pushing for a lot of the actual code in the AI module. So me and Marcus almost made a little startup within Freely Give to focus on AI. And then I started selling things, and it's grown and grown and grown. And so Freely Give are now much, much more company-wide focusing on AI than in the early days, where it was just more just me.
And we're going to see how it's been deployed in Drupal. But so you just said that you've been selling AI-related services to your clients. What's the kind of use case that you've seen that are real use cases today?
Yeah, so I think we've got like sort of two things we call, I would say there's three areas. There's AI search, which people call like vector databases, RAG, etc. And there's a submodule in AI module called AI automators, which is like LangChain. It's like chaining prompts. So you can build simple applications by chaining prompts. And so we found automators, there's so many tiny, but very simple and very powerful applications. And one of them on its own is not a big deal, but like the breadth of it is quite a big deal. So we've looked at using automators to do things like moderate content on communities. And that's one thing that we're working on right now. We've done a proof of concept, they liked it, and we're kind of trying to take it further. And what was interesting about that is traditional methods of moderation would be like spam filters, where it's just, if it's a bot, you say no, everything else goes in. But with AI, we could go the other way. We could look at the original content, we could look at the comments about that content, and we could get LLM to evaluate how relevant that comment is and how useful it will be to the community based around the original thing that has been written. And then we grade it from 0 to 10 or 0 to 5. And then you would propose different automation actions. So 0, okay, we block it immediately. But 1 or 2, we have to get a moderator to check it first. Otherwise, maybe we post it, but a moderator goes and checks it after the fact. Another one is we promote it because this content is almost better than, the actual original piece of content that came along with it. So I found this thing was really powerful because it would be able to pick up things like people would say, somebody would post an article and somebody would say, here's other articles by that person and give links. And it was able to pick up on how it was useful. We could see from the URL that seemed like a real thing, but it was just a random link. There was no context. We have no idea why it was relevant to the original article. So put it as a 6 out of 10, not a 10 out of 10. And I thought that was really powerful. And we had other things like using AI to do style guides, etc., automate workflows. We were using it to manage the automation of a process for delay repay. So if your train's delayed, we had a system where you could upload a ticket and it would check it. Is it valid for that journey? How delayed it was? And a lot of those things required a human to look at, and we could use AI to automate that stuff.
And all those things that you're talking about are still being performed in Drupal or not necessarily?
Yeah, everything's in Drupal.
Everything in Drupal. So when you're talking about a system to manage complaints for the railway industry, it's in Drupal. It's designed in Drupal.
Yeah, it's a full Drupal-based system handling everything. It's got customer service forms, customer service processes, and in the back office, fraud management, importing reports. Is linked to a database of train movements that we created based around publicly available APIs, but we had to pull things in and organize it. So yeah, we've really specialized in pushing Drupal to be more than a CMS and build full-scale Drupal applications. I really love its modular architecture. I found it really great when you build things for one client and they have another client that wants slight changes. Having two separate things that can share a consistent code base was a big winner for Drupal. And the other thing is that a lot of these CRMs, they're great out of the box for what they do, but people build applications out of them, and they tend to not have a very flexible UX or UI. And so what we were finding is that because Drupal is primarily a front-end building experience, we were able to build agent workflows that really heavily focus on helping them achieve that workflow as easily as possible, rather than millions of pop-ups and loads of fields are there by default that you can't really get rid of, and they have to figure out which one they go for. So I really strongly believed in using Drupal for more than CMS work. And there's been a few of us in the community that have done similar things.
That was part of the discussion we had when there was this launch of Drupal CMS, because I was just asking you whether there had been any initiatives to move more into the ERP space for Drupal, because you know that I'm also involved in the Odoo community, which is an ERP, a big Belgian based ERP. So you also have the CRM, you have project management, you have manufacturing, inventory, everything, the accounting. But yeah, it's true that Drupal is still, if you think about Drupal, the association in your mind would be website still today. Even if everything that you're mentioning is really like a full-blown application. So is there any, because that was not on the brief, but is there any application that you could show me that's built on Drupal that you will have in your browser, something that you can show, or is everything private?
Yeah, it's difficult to show. I mean, so this is one of the things we've been working a lot on in the AI community. Is showing off Drupal has got harder and harder to do. In the old days, we used to like get WAMP installed on your site, and you could just mess around the code on your computer. We've improved things at the enterprise level to make things better for developers using things like Composer and Kubernetes, and there's something called DDev, which sets things up. It means that your environment on your machine is the same it's going to be hosted on. But it's getting so hard to show off and demo Drupal, and it's been very frustrating for me with my AI stuff when I talk to people about it. Showing people a demo of it usually requires a developer to go ahead and like make something and then configure it. It's very hard to just spin up a demo of things. So one of the things I've been working on is with a bunch of companies, and we don't have anything to announce yet, but hopefully by Atlanta, DrupalCon Atlanta, so next month we'll be announcing it, is making it much easier to demo things like our CRM stuff. So I can show the page where it is. It's got a screenshot of it. But I've tried to create demo sites that you can then see. But one complicated thing about it is we need it so that the demo site gives you full admin access to that site, because it's a back office experience. And so we need to like find a way that you can click a button and have it hosted, but also it's locked down somewhat. And doesn't have any, obviously I can't show things that have client data. That stuff tends to have very, very sensitive information. So I need something.
It's what they did with the Odoo. They have something that you can find on, I think it's demo.odoo.com, and you've got everything from the interface that you can try with dummy data and play around with all the modules. Yeah, I think it would make sense to have the same kind of experience too.
Maybe for our next podcast, if we do another one, I can come prepared, because we did the demo.odoo like things in the past where it had our contact stuff. But the problem is that you have to maintain that demo site all the time. So it would break. We'd be constantly building new things, and then that demo site would be kept out of date with something else, or the dummy data, managing that took a long time. And so one of the things I do want to do is solve that, because obviously with AI, it's going to be so much easier for us to generate dummy data that is relevant.
Yeah, synthetic
not just
data.
Lorem Ipsum Sons. So there's a whole bunch of things that we've got planned for mainly showing the AI stuff. But they will also be great for showing the database side of things, the event side of things, the the claims management, fraud stuff, etc.
Okay. Let's show a bit of AI in action in Drupal then. You have a few tabs ready for that, I think.
Yeah, let's do that. So this is Drupal.org. So this is freely give. So we are full stack CRM with AI solutions. It's kind of our website. Everything in the Drupal community pretty much is on Drupal.org. There are not really many third-party marketplaces for add-ons or modules that are paid for, compared to like the WordPress community that has a very large ecosystem. But at the moment, everything's on Drupal.org. But we have like contacts. So this is like the UI has changed quite a bit, but this was sort of like the start of it, where you could click on something and go into the contact information there. And it's based around decoupled auth, because I actually think the thing about Drupal is it's got a very flexible architecture. I'm going to show you the AI agent creating content types and editing fields, but for a long time, end users have been able to add those fields, etc. So the user entity in Drupal is fieldable. So to some degree, I've always felt like Drupal itself is a CRM system. The only problem is the user entity has login information directly applied to it. Anonymous users aren't really a thing in Drupal that much. They sort of are, but not really. So the first thing we did is we created decoupled auth, which separated the authentication from of a user from the information about it. And then once you did that, you had what we called them userless users or anonymous users. We had those. And then actually, a lot of the Drupal modules that exist are doing what CRM does. There's Simple News that allows you to send messages to your users, and now it can send it to non-users. There's the Groups module that allows you to create groups full of users and have permissions, and those people can have permissions to only edit certain content on that group or the group itself. Well, we use that group, connect it to an organization entity, and then suddenly we can have members of staff for an organization with permissions to edit information about their staff. So there was a lot of stuff there that we found Drupal basically did CRM stuff out of the box with relatively little work as soon as you made this tiny little change of decoupled auth. And then this contacts module sort of puts stuff around it. Now, this AI module is where I do most of our work. At one point, we're going to split it up and make it all the different components, make it more clear cut. But the core of it is an abstraction layer. And then there's all these different tools. Automators is chaining. AI search is like the vector database stuff. Assistance API is the configuration of chatbots. And then the chatbot is a chatbot. AI agents is at the moment separate, but a lot of it's going to come in. And then what you're going to do is if you install Drupal CMS, so you can go to Drupal.org and there's a try Drupal there. For me, if I got a link to it there, you'll be able to have, this is my one. Try Drupal CMS. And then you'll be able to, there's one with Pantheon, there's different places to host it. So this one here, there's one with Acquia. Is this for Drupal CMS? Oh, that's just general ones. Try Drupal CMS, is that one there? Yeah, there we go, a trial. So you type in your name and email, you get sent an email and you can get set up. Then you're going to go to this place. So if I go to it, you're going to go to this place called Extend. And there's a place called Recipes, and we're working on improving this. And these are all the recipes that came along with Drupal CMS, and there's AI Assistant. And you click and install, and it will guide you through a little wizard to put in an API key and get set up. Our dream by Atlantis to work with some hosts where you can click a launch button and immediately have a Drupal CMS site with the AI agents installed with an AI API key assigned to you with some free credits on it. So then you can get up and going without having to set all these things up. Once you've got that set up, you'll find this chatbot. And this is from an earlier one where I changed the instructions of this chatbot to always shout. And so we got this chatbot here. And should I show end user stuff first, or should I undo this shouting thing and show you like some of the editing tools?
I like the editing tools because I think it's something that makes it special if you compare it when we're just talking before the recording about how AI is used in CMS. Usually it's more about changing something in the front end, working on the text, on the images, on the layout a bit. But here it's closer to the metal. It's the core that you can change with your AI implementation. So that's what also attracted me, is to show how deep you can go with the AI. You can really, it's AI assisted coding in a way that you offer in Drupal. It's not just playing with the layout and the front end. It's really developing the architecture of the application with the AI, if I'm right.
Yeah, so, okay, I'll show you this. So this Drupal agent chatbot, if I go to AI Assistant, you can have multiple, but this one here is this. So if I edit this, this is the role, the user, the role, the prompt, the system prompt sort of that that has been given. It's complicated. In reality, it's quite a lot of system prompts. So if you actually go into advanced settings, there's a variety of very complex system prompts that we've had to make that we're not expecting an end user to handle for it to like figure out which tools to call on. A lot of this is getting improved as we move to more proper function calling and a more normalized approach to these agents. A lot of the stuff we built, the underlying framework for this agent stuff was written by Marcus almost a year and a bit ago, before function calling was really a thing, when agents were in their early stages working for some companies. But this area here is like the bit for the end user to improve their prompt. And you can see I said, can you speak in capital letters like this, hello, and that's slightly embarrassed that you're shouting all the time, just to show that I can do that. I'm going to delete that, so now it's going to behave more, gently. I'm going to save that. and I'm going to clear my history, and I'm going to say hi again, and it's now no longer going to speak to me in caps. So the core of it is we decided to start really small and try and get that small thing working well with Drupal, and then we can expand it to doing lots of things. So the core of Drupal is I can create like a basic page, for example, and I have a title, description, content, tags, etc. Now, if I wanted to change this, I can go to structure, content types, basic page, manage those, and I can add fields to this. Let's say I want to add, I don't know, a time. It's a bad example, but I click create a new field, and there's different types of fields I can do. So let's say ranking or something, and I can click continue. I won't make it, and there's a variety of different settings there. And I find this good and intuitive to use, but some people find it difficult trying to figure out, like, there's always like 4 or 5 different ways you can do the same thing. You can use the media entity, which is a really cool way because it's got a library of all your different media in one place you can search. But I can also do a file upload that is an image. Why would I use one or the other? I can use something called a taxonomy, which is this like separate thing that you can attach to lots of different content to categorize your content. And I have to use something called a entity reference field that references a taxonomy. Or I can use a selection list of things to categorize stuff. So there's all these different ways. So some people find it a little bit difficult to use the back end. So what we can do is, instead of doing that, I'm going to create a new content type. And it might take a little bit of time. There's lots of optimization that can be done. But I'm going to say, let's create a book review content type. So can you create for me a book review content type with the ability to have a title, author, genre, and review _. Okay, so I'm now sending it to this. Now I'm going to show a little video. In fact, actually, whilst this, okay, so it's now giving me a plan of how it's going to do this, and it tells me it can tell me how to do this, or I can say yes, I'd like to go ahead with this.
Okay, and just to ask you about that. So it has been trained specifically on the architecture of Drupal, on all the coding logic, the business logic of Drupal, I guess, in the background. So so it's not just an open-ended coding assistant. There's a lot of focused training on this thing, I guess.
Sort of. I'll show you. It's not training any models technically. So these are all normal models. You can swap them out. You can use OpenAI or whatever. What it's really doing is all of the training is happening in the prompt level. So there's a series of different agents that all can talk to each other. And what it can and can't do is all told it in the prompt. So we're very much using in-context learning as opposed to training right now.
Okay.
So let me show you, and I'll show you what okay, so I refresh the page. You can see now there's a book review. So if I create content, book review. Okay, there you go. Title, author, genre, review, score.
Okay, so it can figure out what a book review would ideally look like in terms of a content structure. So you don't have to, figure out what a book review should be. It will do it for you. I mean, you can always add some stuff manually, I guess, but
yeah, we can add stuff manually. So let's say I'm going to do this, but I don't want to. I want to do like private notes, a bunch of notes. So, can you add to the new book review content type a field where I can put a bunch of private notes in it? So then again, it was going to give me a plan. It goes, I'll proceed now. One little weird thing is that because of the PHP-ish nature of this, it doesn't just do it. I have to, I as an end user have to interact with it in some way. So I have to tell it, yes, please. But that's something that's gonna change. Okay, so if I refresh the page now, discard, you can see private notes is now a field that's just appeared.
And in your experience, it's sort of bulletproof at the moment. It's working most of the time. Or what are the bottlenecks that you're still facing at some point? The things that don't work that well with the agent?
Yeah. So this one that we released, I think, is working about 80% of the time. And our view was, even if it fails, it still will help the end user along their way. Like when it fails, it's easier to fix their failures than it is to start completely from scratch. So 80% is still pretty good. There's a bunch of things we've done with improving the structure of how we handle the system prompts. So one thing that is very complicated with agents is to what degree do you keep the system prompt the same to what degree do you show every single agent the whole history or condense it? And one thing we did find is that massively changing the system prompt in all of the different situations has helped a lot. And that improved things close to 100%. And then we're not using proper function calling here. It's like a pseudo function calling where we're describing to the AI a structure we've set up, and then that inputs it into code we've written on our site to implement things on the site. What we're moving towards is a abstraction layer that already exists in Drupal called actions. So it's a very consistent way for you to have a UI that does something, that then does something on your site. And then we're using something similar to Anthropic's MCP framework to describe what it can do. And then we're going to use real function calling to show the AI agent the tools and request normalized JSON back. And that I also think will do a lot to make it so that it's more accurate, because those models tend to be trained to handle function calling, etc.
And what's the most advanced thing that you can do in terms of building the architecture with the agent? The craziest thing that you've seen that works from a single prompt?
So at the moment, it's, like I said, it's relatively simple. It's more that you can just do a lot of different steps. So like you can create very large sets of content types that have a lot of different taxonomy terms, etc. But we are trying to keep things very simple and then get it accurate and get the tooling around it. And then we'll get more complex. I mean, the big dream is this thing called views. So views is our abstraction layer for creating views of things. So if I see admin content, this is a view. There's a list of content types. I've got filters. I've got actions. And if I go in to edit this, we've got our UI that has a builder for this. So I can set up the relationships to author, to all other different entities on the system. Here's all the fields. Here's the filter criteria. Some of these are exposed. There's sort criteria. A lot of the power of Drupal is the speed at which you can create content types, add those fields, and then make a view that can manage and do something to it. And early stages, we did create a views agent that when you describe what you want, it can then create reports for you. And then what you could do is do things like we had like, put a recipe book in, put it into the AI agent, and it will go and create all the content types for you, create all the taxonomy, create all the content, and then create a bunch of views for managing those things. Marcus has worked on things that can do some really wild advanced stuff with lots and lots of different agents doing lots of different things. But the most complicated one is that we've been trying to do AI migration, where what you're going to do is you're going to put in a URL of a site, click a button, and these AI agents migrate everything. So they crawl through your site and create its own information architecture. Once they discovered the things, the content types like blogs or recipes, it will then go through an archetypal blog post and create the content types. It will then migrate all the content into your site. It will then go and look at the UI of it and create a theme, the visual stuff, and all the layout, and all of the different components, and then arrange them. And we had this really cool thing. You click a button, it did everything. But it never worked. Each step, there was like 20 steps. Each step would work 70 to 90% of the time. But when you got 20 steps that have a 10 to 30% chance of breaking, the probability the whole thing will break gets close to 100.
Now we've seen an example of how you create custom fields in the backend. You could also move to admin views to work on those fields. But your intention is also to do what some other AI systems do. So working on the front end, on the design, on the way the information is presented to the user. In the end, for this book review thing, you would be able also to interact on the front end of the book reviews at some point. But at the moment, you're not doing the front end. You're just doing the back end stuff. I mean, the back end, the admin stuff.
I say at the moment that's what is released in Drupal CMS. I mean, we're within months of releasing more front end stuff. We have built a lot of AI agents that can handle the front end. We're waiting for something called Experience Builder, which I think is going to be the thing that will really make Drupal CMS take off. Like Drupal CMS without Experience Builder is very hamstrung. It's very tough. But like when we have Experience Builder, which is sort of a React-y way of handling the UI and creating layouts and making pages into sections, Experience Builder is going to make things so much better. And we've already made AI agents that can work with it. And then you can like talk to the chatbot and it looks through your media library and can pull images in. It does a lot. This is a video here to show you the AI agent. It's a very old demo, and it shows you the AI agents working behind the scenes. And what we're going to do here is we're going to create a web form using something called the web form module, but we know from a drawing. Just got first name, last name. It's very rough. Dietary restrictions just says choice 1, 2. It's not described in lots of detail.
Mm.
And then we've got this. We're going to be upgrading it soon, but we've got this like a way of approaching AI agents very different to how everyone else had done. With we're calling it the mini Kanban module. Like Marcus made this a long time ago, and we can create an epic like we have with with Kanbans, but instead of assign it to a person, we're assigning it to an AI agent.
Okay.
And then we describe in natural language what we want this AI agent to do, and we upload we upload the image that we just did. And then what's happened here is this is a project manager triage agent, and it knows the agents that it can use behind the scenes, and then it creates a workflow or process where this one it can look at the image and describe the form in text space. This one here can take that description and then actually implement them. So the first one's working, and then the second one works. And then the review agent's going to give you a summary of what it's done in natural language. So you can edit it, results there. I can click on it to see the thing. And now I have a web form. And it's one of the things is this isn't really a coding assistant in the sense that it's creating configuration in Drupal. It's not creating raw code, which is a little bit safer, well, quite a lot safer, because it's constrained by what the tools, the web form allows in configuration. You're not just writing random code to create a form here. You're configuring, well, I need a field. And how do I tell it a field? Well, I use exactly this structure. What features does it have? Well, it has these things. So from a security point of view, it's going to be much harder for the AI to do something that exposes your site to some problems. There are some places where it can, but it's always, this configuration was aimed at an end user, a random user who might not be a Drupal expert and probably not a programmer. They had to be able to use this safely. So if they can use this safely, the idea is that AI is using the same inputs, essentially, as the UI for these things.
And the motivation to use this Kanban board form factor is also to have the human in the loop at every step that you can review before you move to the next one, so that it's not a black box. That was the idea.
It's not a black box. It fits, I think mini Kanban fits not with how developers, so developers, when they visualize agents, they really like graphs.
Yeah.
So like, using React, so you've got all these nodes and all connected to each other. And those graphs are more accurate than Kanban, because Kanban ends with everything on done in a long list. So with Kanban, you can't really see what the workflow was unless you like record a video of all those things moving. Whereas with graphs, you can see the flow. But I find most people who aren't developers, they spend their life in Kanban boards for their own tasks or for managing other people a lot of the time. And they're used to this thing of assigning things to different people and getting reports back. So this thing happened with no human interaction, and the review step was just the final thing. But we could have it so that we said, no, each step a human has to go in. And it's not just the original project manager thing, but each of these tasks I can click on and see what was it told, because it will be told a slightly different set of text compared to what I put in for the web form, for obvious reasons. And then it's going to have a result, and I can see that result. And I can then correct it. Like you'll see in that step here, you still create comment. So it is possible for the agent to get something wrong, to get confused, assign something to me instead, because it needs a question. I reply, it carries on going. It could have other agents reviewing each other's work and going through a loop until you get there, until it passes some kind of gate that it's set up for itself. And you can have humans do that thing. So a human can keep looking like, not happy, blah, blah, blah. It keeps trying and again and again. And so, yeah, this mini Kanban is our hope for it. And we're hoping over the next couple of weeks to have this mini Kanban in a more releasable state. So what I would do is quickly, so now you've seen how those agents work from that point of view. Now, if I go into Drupal CMS again, this chatbot, as you saw, I went to configuration AI assistants, and you can saw that I could configure the assistant, the kind of chatbot that I originally interact with that can choose on which agents and tools to call on. And you can see I can choose these different agents. I could say it can't do content types, fields, taxonomy. But also, I can go into AI and I can see those agents. And here they are, and there's a description. And let's take a look at the field one. So I can click edit that. And now what you're going to see is these are usage instructions. So this is in the list of tools that the assistant has. This is a description that the assistant sees before it picks on how to use it, to give it advice on why to use this agent and how to tell the agent what to do. And then I go into prompt configuration, and you start off with this initial project manager agent, like you saw in my mini Kanban example. And then you have all these agents: answer questions, determine a field exists, determine field configuration, determine field order, determine storage settings. although it says determine, a lot of these have the ability, the actions, to go ahead and do something. So this one can actually manipulate a setting. So you can see the possible actions. And if I click on this override here, the settings for this are a YAML file. And by keeping a YAML file, we essentially can update it. And if we improve the prompts, you'll naturally get that if you update your site. But you can override it and go and look at the complicated YAML file itself and make changes to this. So now you can see the complicated structure of what an agent is. It's got its own system prompt. It's got possible actions that it can do. It shows you the format. It's got one-shot learning examples.
And have you used AI to create the prompt?
A little bit, yes. Yeah. Although we're going to be doing that a lot more soon. But yeah, we have. But also, I could just, instead of having this complicated YAML file, I could also just say extra instructions. So if the agent that is on my site doesn't behave in the way I want, because we in the Drupal community have decided it should be one way. Maybe I really like drop-down lists. Other people prefer find as you type. So I've tended to push them towards drop-down lists. You want to do something different, you can just type in extra instructions here and say, use, and then that adds that to the system prompt. So there's a lot you can do to control those agents. But where we're going with this is, let me share a video now. I don't have a demo yet. It's going to be out in like a week or so. So this is our new structure of the agents, where we have now a more systematized way of doing the actions, a systematized way of handling the messaging between the two, the kind of the conversation, and we're using real function calling. So we're hoping to make it so that end users can create the agents themselves. So here we've got something where you can go and click. Well, we're going to edit an agent now, and then rather than that horrible YAML file, the system prompt is in something that we can see. This one's a triage agent, so it's going to be able to call other agents. And so you've got a system prompt that you can do. This dynamic context tools. So this is like, sometimes you need the agent to just know what content types are on your site, what fields are available to you, and we're going to work on the UI for this. Right now, there's some code to create those context tools. But you can now start seeing there's a bunch of tools that it can call on, but you can select it through this UI. Let me see if there's a page there. So for example, these are context tools it can call on, where it gives it information like list entities, list bundles, get content type information. These are action tools. It can get the weather, do a calculation, or edit a content type. And then as we go further, you can see more and more of these tools that exist. And Drupal already has a bunch of actions available to views and something else called ECA, which is our workflow building tool. And there's another module called ECA that has a ginormous selection of ECA actions, which it uses for its visual workflow building tool. So given that all of these actions exist in Drupal, what we've then found we can do is create a consistent layer on the top of it that tells AI how to use that action. And now suddenly all of the actions available to it, without us having to write any code, you can now make an agent through a UI by just clicking the actions that you want to do. And then this one also has the ability, I think later on you can see it, to select other agents. Okay,
would you plan, or would you consider, because you were saying that in Drupal somewhere else you've got this workflow building tool. Might be interesting also to see them a bit like in NA10, to see the agents in a kind of workflow pattern, to see what's going on in terms of the way the workflow progresses from one agent to the other. Is it something you'd like to do, or not necessary in your view?
Yes, totally. So if I go to ECA, so the other people that we're kind of working with, this is not our stuff anymore, but this is this event condition action system, and it's integrated with bpnn.io. So they have these diagrams there, and we've already got that working with AI. What we're finding is a lot of people have come into automation and they naturally gravitate towards this almost graph-like form of these agents. The issue is, with AI, because it's not deterministic, I think you need to save the output of every single step. And a lot of these tools tend not to assume that. So a lot of the old automation tools tend not to assume that. And I think it's going to be problematic for when you're going to do real stuff with AI. You're going to need every single step stored somewhere. You're going to need a consistent storage layer for everything, for all those decisions. It's one of the reasons why Marcus moved. He used to use LangChain and Python. He moved from that and then built automators, called it interpolator at the time, in Drupal. Was that with LangChain, because there wasn't a normalized structure for how different processes and tools input data and output it, he was having to write code to glue those steps together so many times. Whereas Drupal has a very, very opinionated storage structure. It's a date field. That's how we do dates and times. So because we store dates and times in a certain way, you can then ask for the same date field to give it to you in different time zones, different formats, etc. But we don't just have an Excel spreadsheet where you just type in dates and times in a completely random way each time. So it's very opinionated. And that means when I make my tool, let's say a web scraping tool or a tool that can take a video and output something from it, it's very, very clearly structured. I need to make it work with those fields, and I need to bring it out of a field, which then means we can string everything together in a very consistent manner. Similarly, with this ECA stuff, we need to make it so we store everything in a very consistent way. So if anything goes wrong, we can easily see AI made this decision and try and figure out like why. So we're working on this as well. The ECA team themselves are working on it quite a bit.
In the agent experience, you always have checkpoints with potential rollbacks to checkpoints at every given step, like a bit like what you have in Replit or other AI assisted coding
Not yet.
agents. Okay.
Not yet. So that would be one of the things we found when we moved to Experience Builder. There's a new architecture that is coming along with Experience Builder. That means that because it's using React, the React framework is working with the API and sending it messages and then storing all of those messages. So you can like undo everything and you can have checkpoints. And then once you're happy with the whole thing, you publish it. Whereas Drupal has been around for a long time, and a lot of the time it's just writing things to the database. So we are working on the checkpoint-like stuff. But the checkpoint stuff, unfortunately, requires quite a fundamental rewrite and rethink about how Drupal works. I believe this is a really important part of what we need to do with Drupal. Like Drupal, a lot of people build things in test environments. And even though we've got these fantastic end-user tools, they're not really allowed to use them in production. I think the future should be one of no more test staging production. I think that old model is going anyway. I don't think it's actually more secure. I don't think it actually helps stop bugs get into your live system, because your test environment is usually so different to your live site anyway, for GDPR reasons, for whatever, that things that you find in your test environment don't necessarily translate. It means that it takes ages to get even tiny changes in. And so I've been speaking to people who have been working on really high-end security stuff for like US government stuff, and they've been moving more and more away from this framework of test and moving towards like a true continuous integration. If you have a problem, you can fix it within 2 minutes all the time. If you have a security issue, you can fix it within 2 minutes. And so that's the issue, is that like the test stuff means the time between when you know there's a problem and it's on your site is a long period. Similarly with AI, if we can do that well, then with AI, then we can start having these agents just do stuff in your live site and just roll back everything. And so that is a dream of ours, but it's not there yet.
Yeah, that's the way. Actually, I started coding with AI, and I've never used a staging environment. I'm just pushing, and if there's a problem, roll back. It's pushing all the time, and when you see the GitHub grids of people working with AI, you see that they push much more often than the old school developers. It's thousands and thousands of commits per year. So do you have anything else to show?
So what I was going to show is a search.
Yes. So the RAG experience.
What we have here, again, everything through a UI. There's a lot of work to do to make this better, but we have something called Search API. And this is something that we've had in Drupal community for handling indexing content into like Solr, etc. And it allows you to set up an index and then set up the fields you want to index and the rules for that. And what we've done is we've extended Search API with this AI search module to allow vector databases to be a source, and then slightly different configuration that is important to embeddings. So if we're going to do a standard one, let's say for this chatbot, we can click Edit, where the data source is the content types. We go to Fields, and you can see there's the content machine name for thing, and there's a variety of different indexing options. So what we have here is, and it tells you what main content is. This is going to be the main content. It's full text. and it's going to chunk it because it's in main content. We're chunking it. But some of these things we're going to use as contextual content, and that is going to be things where we bring in, for every single chunk, we bring in the full output of that field. So if you're going to do Lord of the Rings and you want to chunk it, you probably want the title, author, and usually like a one-line summary of the book to make us move from naive RAG onto, I think we used to call it advanced RAG, although now it's becoming the standard way we do RAG everywhere. But this allows you to then pick all the different fields. I can click add fields, can choose other fields across the site to bring in, and then choose what I want to index it with. You can also see we've got filterable attributes. So those will come along, but rather than store it inside the chunk, depending on the database like Milvus, this is data stored as actual string outside, which allows you to like do pre-filtering and then do the vector search on that. And then you can see like various different advanced things like your chunking strategy, etc. I think there was some settings for like the chunk size and stuff.
And can you use, so as far as LLMs are concerned, you can use multiple LLMs for different agents, or you use like one LLM that you pick for all the agents?
Yeah. So if we go back to my agent settings, agent settings, I click edit. Wait, so yes, you can. At the moment, it's all in the YAML. So there wasn't exposed thing. So if we go to the YAML, you can see it will say ChatGPT somewhere here. It might not be in the exposed YAML. So if I go to the assistant, you definitely can. I'm pretty sure that was a setting here somewhere. And it certainly will be in this new approach. But if I go to AI assistants, you can see it's in the advanced settings. Oh, yeah. You can see OpenAI. And I can pick which model I want.
Okay,
and you can do that for every single agent.
And that's through the APIs of those models. So let's say you would use OpenAI. It's via the OpenAI API. You would use Claude by Anthropic. You have to put your API key somewhere of Claude, I guess. So
what we have is, if I go back to the AI website, what we have is a whole bunch of providers. So when you install the AI module, it doesn't come with any providers anymore, but you can see a list of them on the front page. Yeah, here we go. So we got Olama, Mistral, AWS Bedrock, Azure is here, DeepSeek, obviously Fireworks.ai. So these you can install them. So you can download and install them. Drupal CMS comes with OpenAI and Anthropic, and Gemini soon. But we can have all of them. I really love using Fireworks a lot. I think AWS Bedrock is really good if you care about security. And then behind the scenes, you have a bunch of providers. So, I've got a key. We use something called the key module to handle that. So it can use environmental. This doesn't have very many settings. I think with Hugging Face, I haven't got it set up with a key. But when you do set that up, you can then actually, because there's hundreds of thousands of them, it doesn't automatically have access to all of the models. So then through this UI, you can pull in the models that you want to use. You can also notice that we have Olama and LM Studio. So it means I love using LM Studio. Developers tend to use Olama, and we've got Olama plugins to work with DDev. So for the developers, we've made it very easy. But you can then use LM Studio and Olama to set up to local servers or servers you've got set up yourself.
And what is, in your experience at the moment, the best model for the custom field generation agent, for instance? What is the best working one? Is it Claude?
I'm not noticing any big difference between Claude and OpenAI, so they're both good. You need the big ones though. So yeah, Claude, OpenAI. I think we've had good results with R1, DeepSeek R1, although there's some changes we need to make it just gives you all of the thinking tokens. So we need to improve our abstraction layer to not show the thinking tokens necessarily to the agent. So they were pretty good. Obviously, from a security point of view, because obviously DeepSeek recently we found out they're just dumping all of the API, all of the conversations online in an unencrypted SQL database. So I tend to use Fireworks AI, or you could use Bedrock for DeepSeek. I think Grok is also really good. The one with the Q, not the Elon Musk X one, but the other one, Grok, is really fast. So we got that provider for DeepSeek.
Okay. And has
uh,
it completely replaced for you the embedded experience in Drupal? Has it completely replaced using AI to develop stuff for Drupal on the site, like in Claude or ChatGPT, or do you still use from scratch AI to code for Drupal?
So it hasn't yet. So in our team, we've got a bunch of people who are maintainers of AI modules. Some are contractors, some employees of us, some are other companies or people in their free time doing it. Anyway, one of our team in the AI module called Michael, who has, I'm sure you'd enjoy chatting to him. He's very, very into not just AI and Drupal, but just AI generally. Like he's gone wild for it and working with like Llama Index and all the Python stuff. And he has found, I think is it Windsurf? It's the best IDE. And he's really found he's using AI with coding regularly. We're working on using maybe Mini Kanban as a tool that can interact with Git and your Git library. And then once we start making it so that we can start creating our own AI agents really quickly and easily and work it with Mini Kanban, we're thinking of maybe using that to make it so it can do things like refactoring code or upgrading code. So rather than writing code entirely from scratch, it would do like a Drupal, Drupal 1 to 11.01 to 11.02, I think, or was it 11.1 to 2? Sometimes there'll be deprecated functions that still work, but they're deprecated. So having it so that AI can look at anything it uses that and refactor it to the new function, I think is going to be a lot more likely to be successful than just purely writing code. What we found with AI is it would regularly write code, but it wouldn't use the Drupal way. So it would recreate whole bits of code where it should really be using a function or something that already exists in Drupal. And so there were issues with it. I mean, everyone is moving towards AI doing pure coding. At some point, it's going to happen. And I kind of figured everyone's working on it, so I'm not going to focus on that because it's going to happen. And once it's solved, I don't know what's going to happen to the world. Once AI agents are actually good enough as a proper programmer, one of my friends have told me, although they'll say 3.5 is better for coding, the O3 Mini High is the first time he's genuinely been impressed by. He's a very good programmer, so he's asking a lot of it, but it's the first time he's found it's genuinely, it helps him with code in a way that is more than just writing, boilerplate code that he edits. That was helpful already, but he's been really impressed by O3 Mini High.
It's also interesting to see that even, for instance, GitHub Copilot recently released their edit function. So now it's more than writing code that then you copy paste or that you have to manually insert code. It's the cursor experience, really mind blowing. I think it was already fast for me to develop with AI, with Claude and ChatGPT and GitHub Copilot. But now with the edit, it's like right first time for an edit and for some really complex stuff. So that's quite impressive. So where do you see all of this AI generative AI thing going? Do you think that, for instance, the way people will interact with data will drastically change, and that even if today we are still using, like you do, AI to create fields and to create UIs and all of that, at some point, most of the interaction will be conversational?
So hard to say, isn't it? I think it's really hard to predict because we don't know the speed at which it's going. We don't know how the world's going to adapt to it. One of the reasons why I'm going down the road I am, rather than like Cursor. So Cursor obviously is about like making programmers better with AI. Whereas I've got this like mini Kanban stuff, everything I'm doing, I'm not a programmer myself. So I tend to want to pay for AI application-y tools that I could make use of without having to learn the code, which I did when I was 16. I haven't in like 20 years properly. I keep trying to learn, but I get busy with other things. So I've always seen, rather than Cursor, which is like a little tool that helps you with your IDE, a way like mini Kanban is more similar to like when I'm working in Jira or GitLab's issue queues, where I'm assigning things to a developer and then they're giving me a response back. So to me, I've got this dream that I'm going to be interacting with these AI agents like I would my programmers, typing away inside an issue queue. One of the reasons why I think that is actually going to be very key is if you think of like the most intelligent person, I think we talked about this last time we met, the most intelligent person you've ever met, high IQ, would you just give them access to your bank details, all your car keys, your house keys, and just say, make my life better. You probably wouldn't. However much, in theory, they might be better. There's always going to be an alignment problem, always, because what the alignment problem is, like to get something to align with me, it changes every day what it is I want them to do. Like, obviously, I don't want AI to murder me, but like in terms of like making my money better, there's an element of what is my risk profile for my investments is a thing that you just have to decide for yourself. You can't get someone who's super intelligent to decide where you put your money for your stocks, because at the end of the day, we don't know the future and how clever they are. You've got to decide how much you're willing to risk. Like, do you want to risk your house? How much would you care if you ended up in a tent? Like, so we're always going to need a human, I think, in a loop. A big part of it as well is that humans can take responsibility. So I can put them in jail. At worst comes to worst, you can kill them. You can ban them from coming along. And we know humans don't like to go in jail, and they don't like to die. So I know I can build a whole countrywide system that disincentivizes people from doing things that are against me. It's hard to do that with AI. Like, they do internally, they have like a reward punishment system for how they're trained. But you could train an AI system that wants to keep on living. You could train an AI system that wants to shut down very quickly. You can train it to really care about the Golden Gate Bridge, as we saw with Anthropic. So, like, I think we're always going to need a human to have that responsibility to sign off on things. And so that's why I feel like this thing of AI doing a lot, but presenting things to people to like sign off on, and everyone becomes like a manager, is something to do with the future. But yeah.
And the question is also how much people can prompt the thing, can actually figure out the structure of what they want this AI to achieve. Because you could give the best AI coding tool to 100 people. I would assume that most of them wouldn't be able to even design a basic Kanban board with the AI, because they don't know the terminology of those things. They don't know the basic structure. They don't know how the cards are supposed to be moving from one place to the next. So maybe the fact that those tools are as powerful as they already are, and they will improve in the future, it will redefine the way we train people to learn how to use technology more in a creative, in like an architect, less than someone going deep into the coding thing, being able to have a discussion about that application. That's the number one bottleneck I see for AI-assisted coding now. It's not even the code anymore, because you can do pretty much what you want in any language today with AI-assisted coding. It's just, what should this thing do for the end user? And how do I bring it to life with the AI? But I think we will always need. I mean, we're talking about interface UI. At some point, you always need some form of UI to interact with the data. You need a button to upload a picture. You need to see a graph with your finance. You need to see any form of rendering. The fact is that I think some of those UI components won't be static anymore, like always on. They will just appear and disappear when you need them.
Yeah.
So when you need a button, you get it, and then the button isn't there anymore. So you don't have thousands of pages with dead settings.
I mean, Anthropic with its artifacts, that was wild. I remember there were two moments where I got terrified about AI, when ChatGPT 3.5 hit and when artifacts hit, and how it can just create whole UIs, applications in the browser. And then you can imagine a future where, like, do I need a UI? Do I need Drupal? Do I just like ask it random questions and it writes like pure machine code on the fly to render things? It just like controls the pixels on the screen. Like, I don't know. I think not, again, because I do think we're going to want humans in the loop for a lot of these things. So I don't know, I might be wrong about that, but I get the feeling like the UI, having AI bring you through the UI or do things, but then I can click in and figure out what it's done, is quite important, rather than just having something like a UI that just gets completely made from scratch each time. But an element of that is the case that I think we're definitely going to see more AI writing dynamic things. I'm just doing it based around configuration and AI interacting with tools rather than writing pure code. As soon as you AI writing pure code that you expose to users and you put on one of your sites, the level of certainty that it's good is so much higher than any of the things that we're doing with Drupal.
You can use a lot of the system prompts to feed it with templates of what you're expecting. Let's say you've got your ideal bar graph or your ideal pie chart or your ideal whatever, visualizations that you like. You can put it in the system prompt, and then it skips all the reasoning process, the reasoning phase. It goes straight to, okay, that's what they want. They want this type of color scheme. They want this type of size. They want, and then it goes straight to the component. But I think also that many big systems, like we're talking about Odoo, for instance, a big system like an ERP like that will probably invest more time into making sure that the APIs can be used by the LLMs, because these days it's still quite cumbersome for many of those business platforms to just give you an API that can be used by an LLM. So if everything is clear in terms of API, then you could dream of what I would call a headless system.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you focus 99% of your energy on the data structure and the API, and then you can have any experience on top of it. It can be more like tables, or it can be more like forms, or it can be more graphs, or it depends on your style also. You could have 5 different people experiencing the same ERP in 5 different ways, depending on, are they more visual, are they more tables, more,
Yeah, so we one of the community members have worked on the MCP module, project/MCP, which is our Model Context Protocol by Anthropic, which I'm sort of calling like the REST API, but for AI agents. And so now Drupal can be a REST, an MCP server. And they've shown a demo of the agents that you saw using the Claude desktop app to interact with Drupal and then control those agents. And somebody else had a demo, which you might like because it's I think it's another Belgium. Is he a Dutch-speaking Belgium? Is that right? But one of them, he did that is a thing in Belgium, isn't it? It's Dutch, French. It's Dutch and French, isn't it, mostly? Yeah, so it was a Dutch-speaking Belgium, and he did an example where he phoned a thing that he made. They interacted with the Drupal AI agents, and as he was talking on the phone in Dutch, the Drupal site was like just changing, and he had to click refresh, which we do want to change, but every time you refreshed it, those things were being made by just a phone call. And that was, again, similarly through like this MCP thing where you can have a voice call, but it's not just like a voice thing in our chatbot, but it's a phone call. So it's interacting with something else. And with MCP, they are, the way the servers work is they just dump all the tools that you can use on you. So the idea is the AI can figure out all the tools that are there and where it goes. What we're doing with the AI agents at the moment is making them more constrained. So each agent has only the tools that it needs and it knows how to do it in the prompt. But they are planning with MCP that the future is you have your application on your computer, you ask it something, and it just is able to go to everything in Jira, everything in Git, everything in Gmail, everything in Google, all of those things. And pull all those things in, do all of the things it needs to do, just for you.
Yeah, like a VA, like a virtual assistant.
But, virtual assistant. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I think if we get together next year, everything will have changed again. So yeah. But it was a good introduction to Drupal AI today. Thank you so much for taking the time to do it. There are so many things still to discover. So the best place to go is Drupal.org, you said, and search for the AI module there. And where can people find you? That's usually what we say also in the end of a podcast. So on LinkedIn, I guess, as I found you.
So I tend to be on LinkedIn. James Abraham's there, Drupal.org, freelygive.io. We're on Drupal.org/AI. And then if you go to Drupal Slack, #AI, that's where I spend a lot of my life. It's LinkedIn and #AI on Drupal Slack. There's a huge, vibrant community of people talking about things there.
Thank you so much for your time today, and congrats for everything you've done. I mean, it's a massive work. It's quite impressive. I'm pretty sure it will redefine what Drupal stands for over the next few months. Thank you so much for your time, James.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.